One day, a man named Kweku Anansi went to God to complain that his wife was nothing more than an extra mouth to feed. He also complained that she was eating his share of the food at home. God asked Anansi, "What would you like me to do about this problem?" "God, please give me a wife with no mouth upon her face," replied Anansi. God looked upon Anansi with bemusement, as Anansi never failed to surprise God with his strange reasoning and outlandish plans. "Okay," said God. "Come the morning I shall give you a new wife with no mouth upon her face." Anansi was so excited that he went straight to the supermarket to buy yams and plantains for the next day. "Finally," thought the greedy man, "all of the food that I buy will be for me alone to eat." Waking up to a beautiful sunny morning, Anansi saw his new wife in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The wife turned and acknowledged her husband with a silent nod, then continued with her breakfast preparations before the stove. Anansi could not believe that he was lucky enough to have a new wife, one who would cook only for him and eat nothing herself. And he could not believe that he had gotten away with asking for such a wife from God. Several days passed and things seemed to be going very well, until Anansi went to check on the food supplies in the kitchen. The greedy man was very surprised to discover that most of his food had disappeared. Anansi knew that he could eat a great deal of food, but had he really eaten 4 bags of rice, 6 yams, and 3 plantains in such a short time? He was very puzzled because he was supposed to be the only one eating the food, especially as his new wife didn't even have a mouth with which to eat. And so Anansi decided to find out. Over the next few weeks, he kept a very close eye on the kitchen. But no matter how closely he looked, he could find nothing unusual at all. His wife cooked every meal only for him. Anansi just did not understand why he still had to buy twice as much food each week. Where was it all going? Anansi knew that he liked to eat his wife's cooking, but even he could not finish so much food in such a short time, could he? One night, Anansi woke up to drink some water as he was very thirsty. It was then that he heard a rumbling noise in the house and quickly went to check on his wife. But when he entered her room, he discovered that she was not in her bed. So then he crept towards the kitchen and peered through the open door. Anansi could not believe his eyes as he stood still in the kitchen doorway. There, sitting on a stool at the table, was his new wife, and she was eating a big bowl of food. He watched in amazement as she scooped up the boiled rice and yams, lifted up her right arm, and put the food into a mouth that was hidden in her armpit. Anansi was very shocked to see such a thing. He thought to himself, "So this is where all of my food has been going. My wife has a secret mouth in her armpit, and she has been stealing food during the night. What a mean trick." The next morning, Anansi took his wife back to God and demanded to know why she had a mouth hidden in her armpit. God answered, "You asked for a wife with no mouth upon her face, and so I gave you a wife with a mouth under her arm. You did not ask for a wife with no mouth at all." Anansi felt humiliated and tricked, but God had no sympathy for the greedy man. God said to him, "You had a devoted and loving wife, Anansi, But because of your greed and selfishness, you thought you would be clever and demand a new wife from me. I am showing you that I am much wiser than you, and I hope you have learned a lesson here. Greed and selfishness have no place in life." Anansi felt ashamed by his greed and begged God to return his old wife to him because he had indeed learned a valuable lesson. From that day on, Anansi was determined to be a better man and not be so selfish. And who knows, perhaps he would even try to be more. Once upon a time, there was a small village at the edge of a dense forest. It was a peaceful village, but there was one thing that made the villagers uneasy. Every full moon, a mysterious figure would appear in the forest, and no one knew who or what it was. One day, a young boy named Tom went into the forest to gather firewood for his family. As he was walking, he heard strange noises coming from the trees. Suddenly, he saw the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows. Tom was terrified and ran back to the village to warn everyone. The villagers were skeptical at first, but they decided to investigate. They formed a search party and entered the forest. As they walked deeper into the woods, they heard the strange noises too. Suddenly, they saw the figure lurking in the shadows. It was a huge wolf with glowing red eyes. The villagers were terrified and started to run away, but the wolf chased after them. They were able to escape, but the wolf had wounded several people with its sharp claws. The villagers knew they needed to do something to protect themselves. They decided to seek the help of a wise old woman who lived in a nearby town. The woman was known for her wisdom and her knowledge of magic. The villagers asked her for her help in defeating the wolf. The old woman listened to their story and agreed to help. She asked the villagers to gather some ingredients for a powerful potion that she would make to defeat the wolf. The villagers worked hard and collected everything the old woman needed. The old woman made the potion and gave it to the bravest villager. He drank it and set off into the forest to face the wolf. As he walked, he could feel the potion coursing through his veins, giving him strength and courage. When he found the wolf, he didn't hesitate. He attacked it as they celebrated, however, they didn't notice that the wolf's body was slowly disappearing. It was as if it had never been there at all. The old woman saw this and realized that the wolf was not a natural creature, but something that had been conjured by magic. She decided to investigate and soon discovered that there was a group of evil witches who had been using the wolf to terrorize the villagers. The old woman knew that they needed to be stopped before they could do any more harm. She gathered a group of brave warriors and set off to find the witches. They traveled for days, fighting off all sorts of dangerous creatures along the way. Finally, they arrived at the witches' lair. The old woman and the warriors stormed the lair, fighting off the witches and their minions. It was a long and brutal battle, but in the end, the old woman emerged victorious. She had defeated the witches and destroyed their dark magic forever. The villagers were overjoyed to hear that the source of their terror had been defeated. They thanked the old woman and the warriors for their bravery and knew that they could finally live in peace.